President of Indian Society of Radiographers and Technologists, Mr. Sarfa Kumar.
Selamat pagi. Very good morning.
Selamat pagi.
All the presidents of Southeast Asian radiographers, presidents, and all the fellow radiographers, brothers and sisters. It's my pleasure to be here in the august presence of these distinguished members, the dais, to talk about the Indian scenario of education for radiography and the licensing system. I'm very much grateful for the invitation extended by Mr. Sugianto, President, Indonesian Radiographers Society, and the other members here. Thank you. No one forgot about the inventor of the X-ray. Without his name, we are not here to be in the great gathering of this Radiographers Society. He is the first Nobel Prize winner for the physics, and with his support, we are here, our noble profession here for the paramedical community. In a nutshell, we can discuss about the Indian scenario of radiography in the past, present, and the future. Then, after 1895, the discovery of the X-rays, the worldwide doctors are using the X-ray equipments, and slowly it is delivered to the nursing community, then slowly the radiographers community taken over this and their use and career as a radiographer. In India also, it is started in 1930 by the British people. Then the first radiographer, Mr. Josiah from Tamil Nadu, is taken as the first Indian radiographer in 1933. In as early as 1935, in Chennai, the Bernard Institute of Radiology and under the Madras Medical College started the official radiography courses. And in 1950s, the Christian Medical Association of India started the regularized radiography courses with a full stream. These are some of the earliest pictures, and that's how the modern radiography is evolved. And basically, radiographers in India nowadays bifurcated into diagnostic imaging radiographer and the therapeutic radiographer. Simultaneously, there are some evolving radiography improvements in the field of contrast imaging, CT, ultrasound, MRI, and interventional radiology is taking place. They initially starting with the radiological certification course, and then later the formal radiography trainings are started. In the later mushrooming of a lot of courses are started, but nowadays all this taken into control, and regularized courses are available in India from diploma, degree, master degree, and doctoral degree also available in India. for the practice. The basic subjects taught in this radiography courses are the anatomy and physiology, radiological physics, radiography, photography, care of the patient, and the techniques and the clinical skill. Initially started with a diploma, then the degree courses are started in 1980s. Nowadays, for the past 1 decade, we are up to master degree and the doctoral degrees are available. Most of the classroom teaching facilities are available, and semester exams, annual exams are conducting for this, and Viva OC with internships are compulsory for completing your degree courses. The role of ISRT in Indian radiographers in India, in the absence of the regularized licensing by the government body, ISRT is taking as a role of apex professional body to take care of the licensing, education, and other role. ISRT has been dedicated to carry out non-statutory professional regulation through registration, licensing, and credentialing process to radiographers of Indian origin. As an apex national professional body, ISRT has yet another important obligation in India, that is the comprehensive professional development. For this purpose, ISRT has established more than 30 academic clubs in the length and breadth of India and conducts academic programs and training in regular intervals. As a national with geographical and cultural diversity, it is not an easy task to place all Indian radiographers under the non-statutory professional regulatory framework of ISRT. Moreover, in India, there is no mandatory need of license to practice as a radiographer, as the Allied Health Professional Bill is pending for legislation in Indian Parliament. But the ISRT has won the heart of Indian radiographers by our professional development activities within a short span of 12 years of inception. The chain of academic club conducts regular programs in almost all cities of Indian Peninsula. On the major step by ISRT is certification and fellowship program in radiological technology in the formation of ICRT as an academic subsidiary of ISRT. My fellow traveler, Mr. Magesh, is the registrar for the ICRT, and we are planning to conduct some exit program for radiographers for the issue of certification program and some field experts like MRI, interventional radiology, fusion imaging, etc. Also, ICRT has a program like fellowships and memberships in college with strict examination and assessment. ICRT will start its formal function on 8 November 2018. As of now, there is no official licensing system in India. So our organization, ISRT, is taking care of this type of activities. And as all aware that
2 minutes left.
As everyone aware, in India is the most developing nation in the world with its improving economic growth and achievement in science and technology, including space science. The metro cities in India is a destination for healthcare from various countries, and our medical tourism is also in the growing stage. So, We are taking care of our radiographers of Indian origin working throughout the world. Thank you all. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Mr. Selva Kumar. Yes, and the next from National Public Relations Officer by Pichi S. Luna.
Right, so magandang umaga. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, dear friends, honorable presidents of different international organizations, and family members of our big Radtech radiology technology family in the Southeast Asia region. So I am tasked today by President Rolando Banares to present about the Philippines, the evolution of the Philippine radiology technology education and profession. And this is my objectives. So let me start first with the reforms in the Philippines radiologic technology students' education. So with this image that you see here, so in October 1969, the ISRRT held the Congress in Japan, with the Japanese Association playing the host. And in 1969, at the same year, Norberto A. Palomo of the Philippines has attended the 1969 ISRRT and set up a curriculum for the first X-ray technology education, started in September 9, 1969, and was offered on November 30, 1969. So next, I'd like to present the evolution of the RT education in the Philippines. So it started in 1969, so the first education offering in following year. We have a 2-year curriculum under the Department of Education, Bureau of Private Schools. So this is the one that has approved a permit to open the first school of X-ray technology at the Family Clinic Hospital. And in 1973, the 2-year original curriculum was increased to 3 years, leading to the title Associate in Radiologic Technology. So this includes 2 years didactic courses and a year of practicum. So on June 1974, President Marcos issued a presidential decree. This is about the creation of Radiation Health Office under our Department of Health. This agency is appointed to set the first civil service qualifying examination for graduates of X-ray technology education, and this was first held in July 14 of year 1974. And from years 1994, so in between those years, we have in 1980, there was crowding of enrollment, which led to mushrooming of schools in the Philippines. And in 1985, the 4-year curriculum was offered in different schools. Now, in 1992, no technical panel is still set. And unlike then, the nursing and the dental health, they already have the technical panel, which will continue to monitor and evaluate the existing programs. So in year 1994, here you see we have the Commission on Higher Education. So that's the year when this government institution was set forth to monitor the standards, the guidelines, and the qualifications of all the educational programs offered in the Philippines. So in 1995, so we have, just after a year, imagine we have the revision of the policies and the guidelines for the Radtech education. And just 2 years after, so in 1998, so in 2-year making, we have the CMO number 227. This is for the 2-year revision of the 2-year associate in health science education. So this is inclusion because of the rise of the need of BS nursing graduates. I know you have heard that. So the curriculum for RadTech was revised. Firstly, a student must have to finish a 2-year program. This is leading to a diploma where you can be qualified to work as an assistant to the nurse in the Philippines. So in 2001, we have CMO 6 series of 2001. So this is the new policies and standards for RadTech education. So for like more than 5 years in the making, in 2006, there was the release of another revision of the BS RadTech curriculum. So currently in the Philippines, we have 3 existing programs. If you would like to enroll radiology technology education, you may opt to enroll the first here, the ART. So this is a 3-year course leading to the associate degree in RT. We have a ladderized BSRT embedment with TESDA. This is a non-tertiary course, so leading also to the BSRT. So we'll have to enroll TESDA programs, vocational courses under TESDA, and that will lead also to the BSRT program degree. And here, this is the 2015 old curriculum replaced by the new BSRT curriculum that is now offered all over the Philippines. So just to have an idea of these current courses, let me start first with ART. So here in the ART, you can see that we have here 8 hours requirement for 6 days total of training in a week, a total of 1,920 hours for an associate degree student. So here we have the embedment of the TVET competencies. So a RadTech, a first year or second year college student under the BSRT TVET embedment program can first study and finish to become a barangay health service, a healthcare service provider, leading to the BSRT degree. And as said, this is the replaced 2015 curriculum by the new curriculum offered now all over the country. So what was the big change here? So first, the approach now of BSRT education is in outcomes-based format. So students are always expected to produce outcomes in all the subjects that they will have to enroll under the BSRT. And so here you would see that we have increased a lot with the academic units, but the total number of hours is still maintained to 2,112. So that also means that a BSRT student in his or her last year under the degree will have to complete 6 days in a week, covering 8-hour period of training. So a total of 2,112 hours, or equivalent to 11-month-long training. All right. So in the PSA, Philippine Statistics figures in 2017, and consistently with the release of the PSA 2018 in early October. So there is an emphasis that still the radiologic technology under the allied medical and allied sciences education consistently is ranking at the 5th. But even if we see that it is in one of the top courses that leads to production of more graduates more enrollment in the Philippines, so we can see even in the PSA 2017 and consistently in the 2018 October released PSA report that there is still a decline in the number of graduates. And so with here, so the Commission on Higher Education consistently endorses the enrollment of the radiologic technology course in the Philippines. And this is in coordination with the released data from the Department of Labor and Employment that in this year, and in the coming 2020, there would be a huge rise for demand for radiologic technology professionals. Now, in our country, we are very much conscious about the qualification referencing framework in the ASEAN. So that's why in 28 this year, we have now the acceptance of the first graduate of the K-12 program. So now the primary education will have to senior high school before entering the college. And as mentioned earlier, a BSRT student may opt to ladderize the BS degree, enrolling first the TESDA embedment curriculum, leading to this level of qualifications. If somebody will graduate here, so the level now will be level 6. So before, without the K-12, in some countries, our BSRT graduates are leveled lowered, and so there was a change now. So we have the K-12, so that internationally a BSRT, a master's degree or a doctoral degree candidate will have to level with international standards.
Excuse me, I was over.
All right. So and lastly, so this I'd like to present the different qualification frameworks that other countries also offer. So that's just this last slide, maybe. So just last slide. So here is the data of the total number of licensed individuals under the BSRT program. So we have increased to 20,000, because we have an additional 2,000 more licensed in the Philippines. So with this continue the challenges that we have to fulfill. There is high demand of RadTechs in the Philippines, and we encourage schools to have to produce more graduates to fulfill the demands for licensed RT. So with that, maraming salamat po.
We have a signing of memorandum of understanding with Siemens Healthcare. This is about education and training for the next year, in the 2018. This is the Siemens provided 100 training, education and training for all radiographers in Indonesia. So right now we have a signing of that MOU. Please come from the General Director of Siemens. You may say one or two words on the MOU.
Hello everyone, my name is Justin Yu from Siemens Healthineers. I'm in charge of the education business development over Asia Pacific. So I may met some of you, like especially in Philippines or in Vietnam, and we're actively working with the collaboration with each societies. For Indonesia, it's our pioneer project. So with the society itself, we want to contribute to the entire society to deliver more education opportunities. And we made up a draft, a collaboration draft, together with Indonesia Society Paris. And today will be our official signature day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes. We propose for a Simon Education Memorandum of Understanding between Indonesian Society of Radiographers with Siemens Healthineers.
Thank you for still being here and joining the program this morning. Today we are pleased to welcoming Ms. Tan Chekwi.
Okay, a very good morning to everyone. So this morning I'm going to share on the impact of advanced imaging on radiotherapy. Can I just have a show of hands? How many radiation therapy people here? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I will also be touching on how the imaging, that means diagnostic imaging, has impacted on radiotherapy. All right, so before I start my presentation, just like to give a quick greetings from the board, ISRT Board of Management. All right, I'm the Regional Director of the ISRT. So what is ISRT? So we are the International Society of Radiographers and Radiological Technologists, and we were formed in 1962 as a non-profit organization. And now we have over 90 member societies representing more than 86 countries. And Indonesian Society of Radiographers is also one of the member society of ISRT. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Sujanto and the Indonesian Society of Radiographers for their contribution and strong support to ISRT. Well, ISRT is the only organization that represent all the medical radiation technologies internationally. So the mission of ISRT is, of course, to improve the standards of delivery and practice of medical imaging and radiation therapy throughout the world. So if you are interested to know about international standards, practice, and what is happening in the international arena, please feel free to check out our website, www.isrt.org, or to check out our Facebook. And please help to like our Facebook, all right? Okay, so today this is the content of my presentation. I'm going to touch a little bit about the development of radiotherapy, imaging in radiotherapy, and of course the impact of advanced imaging on radiotherapy. Okay, as we all know, radiotherapy is a type of cancer treatment that uses high doses of radiation to destroy cancer cells. So it can be used alone or in conjunction with surgery or chemotherapy to help to destroy cancer cells. So radiotherapy can be divided into two different types, where you can deliver radiation through external beam radiotherapy or the internal radiation therapy, which is also known as brachytherapy. So for the external beam treatment, radiation is delivered through the machines and is non-invasive. And whereas for brachytherapy, usually there's insertion with radioactive source, and it is a slightly invasive procedure where you insert the radioactive source near to or close to the target area. So this is a summary of the milestone of the delivery of cancer radiotherapy and imaging. So radiotherapy has come a long way since the discovery of X-rays by William Röntgen in 1895. So in the early days, X-rays was used to treat superficial lesion. And only in the 1950s, with the development of cobalt machine and linear accelerator, we are able to treat more deep-seated tumor using this megavoltage machine. And in the 1965, with the development of multi-leaf collimator, we can do more fanciful treatment in radiotherapy. And of course, with the development of MRT and MR-Linac, the radiotherapy arena become very interesting. So, how is imaging related to radiotherapy? Well, imaging plays a very, very critical role in radiotherapy, because in the early days, we depend on imaging to help us to locate the treatment area. So in the early days, the treatment machine were not able to plan using CT images. So we will only be able to treat patients using orthogonal film. So as you can see over there, so this is what we can acquire, and the doctors have to transfer whatever they see on the CT images onto this 2D film. So they can actually, if they can palpate the tumor, they will wire out the tumor. And if this is the area that they do not want to treat, so they will contour out. And this is the area where we'll create the block to shield off the area. So in early days, when patients come for radiation treatment, you usually see boxes, rectangle, square being drawn on patient. So that is where it will indicate where is the treatment field. So treatment field is usually defined by the X and Y jaw. All right? And then during treatment planning, this area that we want to treat will need to be translated in 2D, and that's where we do treatment planning. Okay, so these are the blocks that was being created for treatment, and then we deliver treatment. So before we treat, how do we know that we are treating correctly? So we will take MV images. So these MV images will be based on the position that we actually locate during the 2D times we do the conventional simulator. So it is a very simple process. All right, that means we just compare the MV images taken with our X-rays to define where is the treatment area, and we can proceed with the treatment. However, with the development of the machines, all right, the treatment planning machines, the radiotherapy machines, we can now do treatment planning on CT images. So we do not need to translate CT images from diagnostic scan to the treatment planning system anymore. So that's where you see all the radiotherapy center started having a lot of CT scan in the department. All right, so the purpose is that we will do the CT scan, so the doctors will draw the tumor on the CT scan, and we can now treat this tumor. All right, and then rather than the square or the rectangle view, we can actually conform the field much better for treatment. So that's where you have all the fanciful treatments where the leaf can conform to the shape of the tumor rather than having just a square and rectangle view. So what about treatment? How does imaging change in treatment? So as mentioned previously, you can only see the X-rays from. So now with the new treatment machines, you can do cone beam CT. So you can take cone beam images and fuse with your CT images to help you to locate the treatment position. Okay, so with this advancement in radiotherapy machine, we can do very fanciful thing now. So rather than just treating by a box or a rectangle, now we can have very nice dose conforming to the tumor. So this is the red part of the tumor. All right, so other than that, we can also do dose painting. So we can have a very high dose inside the tumor and a dose outside, a lower dose. So that is only capable with the development of MRT and a new treatment machine. So imaging in radiotherapy. So imaging has played a very critical role in radiotherapy because without imaging, we cannot see where we treat. We will not know where is the area to treat and how to deliver it accurately. Because if you cannot see, you cannot deliver accurately. So I like this quote by John Herod, which says that if you can't see it, you can't hit it. So if you can't hit it, you will never cure it. So it's like just a blind man, blindfolded, trying to hit the target. All right, so it's always a hit and miss. So this is very important in radiotherapy. So that's why imaging is very important in radiotherapy, because it is the eye for us to see where we want to treat, how we want to treat, and how to treat it accurately. Okay, so this is a typical radiotherapy workflow. So we start off with simulation. That's where we take images to help us to identify where we want to treat. So this is a typical workflow of the radiotherapy. So we start off with simulation. So that's a process where we try to locate where is the tumor. So once we locate, to take pictures to help us to see where is the tumor. So after that, when we can see the images, the doctors can start doing contouring to locate the tumor. And after we can locate the tumor, then we can treat. All right? So imaging play a very important role in the different part of the radiotherapy workflow. So especially simulation part. So as mentioned earlier, previously we only have conventional simulator. So we can only see the bony landmark. We cannot see the tumor. So now we have CT simulator. We can actually see more information compared to just this one. So if the doctor can see more, they can actually identify where is the tumor better, and then we can treat the tumor better. And what about MR simulator? So now other than just using CT for planning, there is also a new machine, all right, that RT is starting to take note of, which is the MR simulator. Why are we interested in MR simulator? As you can see, the image quality is so different. All right, so if the doctor can see this and this, which one can the doctor see the tumor better? So probably MRI. So MRI will be good for tumor in the brain and in the pelvic region. So the development of using MR simulator is only available because our treatment planning system currently has some ability to do planning on MR simulator. So if we are not able to do planning on MR images, usually we will fuse these images with our CT images to help us to do the contouring part. Okay, so treatment planning. So like I mentioned earlier, so if I do not have an MRI simulator in my department, I can always do it over a diagnostic site. All right, so that's where you see all your RT colleagues going to the diagnostic department. I need an MRI simulator, I need images. And then they will usually request for you to make sure that the bed is flat. They do not like the curve, okay? Because we try to fuse this with the MRI images from the diagnostic scan. So what is the purpose? Because we want to see the tumor better. Because there's a limitation in the different diagnostic modalities. So CT is better in certain areas, and MR images are better in certain areas. So if we can fuse these two images together, it is easier for the doctors to identify the place that we want to treat, all right, and then the place that we don't want to treat. So other than MRI, the treatment planning machine can also now fuse with PET. All right, so we can have PET, we can see the functional activities, all right, to help us to better identify and locate the treatment position. Okay, what about treatment delivery? Is there any improvement in treatment delivery? So previously, we can only do MV images. So if this is the area that we want to treat, all right, so we have to take this to verify before we can actually treat the patient. So this is what we call MV image. But now our machine is much more smarter and better because other than just taking MV images, we can do KV images, which give us a better quality, and we can also do a cone beam CT. So of course the cone beam CT, this is a cone beam CT, this is your normal CT. So the cone beam CT images is taken on the machine by the linear accelerator. So you can see the image quality is not as good. But if we can fuse these two images together, we can know whether our target is located correctly, whether our position is accurate before we start the treatment delivery. So at every stage of the treatment planning, radiotherapy delivery, from the simulation to the treatment planning to the actual treatment delivery, you can see we all need imaging. All right, so without imaging, we will not know where to treat, okay, how to treat, and then how to treat it accurately. So with cone beam CT, where we can see everything in 3D, is it better than just seeing the bony structures to help you to identify your tumor? Okay, so this is the another example of fusion with cone beam CT. So you can see cone beam CT, the images can be quite bad. All right, so this is a CT simulation. So other than just fusing up, you can see whether the tumor is accurate every time before you start the treatment delivery. Okay, other than using MRI images, CT images, all right, what other areas of advance is being used in radiotherapy that we have adopted, that we have taken from the diagnostic side? So what is the latest, most advanced imaging in diagnostic? Okay, so in radiotherapy, we have also tapped onto 4D CT in diagnostic imaging to use it in radiotherapy. Because traditionally, for many years, we have always ignored motion in radiotherapy planning. Why do we ignore? Because there is no technology to help us to track the motion, especially in the lung, in the abdomen. Okay? Traditionally, radiotherapy has always been taken at a single phase. So if you go for a CT simulation, it is the images being taken at a single phase, especially when you are breathing. So if the images was being taken at maybe the inspiration part, but during the treatment, the patient is breathing in and out. There's no breath hold stop. So how accurate can you locate the tumor? All right? So what do the doctors do? Of course, we know that there's issues with organ motion, but there's nothing we can do. So what the doctors do is, of course, we can ignore. We give a big area because we know that there's motion. So instead of just treating the tumor area only, the doctors usually will draw a very big area so that we can account for motion. All right? So if you don't want to treat such a big area, what is another way that you can do to limit the motion? So you ask patients to hold their breath. So sometimes maybe the diagnostic radiographer may be wondering, why are radiation therapies so cruel? Why do we torture our patients that we ask patients to hold their breath during treatment? They cannot breathe during treatment. This is because we want to limit the motion, especially for lung treatment. Because if you breathe a lot, especially during the first day when you do your CT simulation, patient is very nervous, so they breathe very hard. So the tumor moves up and down a lot. All right? But subsequent, when they start their radiotherapy, as you know, radiotherapy is not just one fraction, it can stretch over 30 or 40 fractions. So subsequent, after the 10th fraction, patients get very relaxed and start breathing very, very slow. All right? So what is the impact on the organs, especially in your lung and abdomen? And of course, now with the ability to track the tumor in 4D CT, then we can actually see what are the things that we can do. Okay, so what is 4D CT imaging? So imaging technique that provides information on organ motion during respiration. So we want patient to go for treatment, breathe normally, resting on the bed, and we can know where is the tumor, how the tumor moves during the treatment. All right? So 4D CT gave us the capability to at least have a look at what is happening inside the patient body during the breathing motion. All right, so we can acquire the CT images over consecutive phases of breathing. So that means we can track the whole breathing from inspiration to expiration. And then we can also know how much the tumor moves. So if we can see how the tumor moves, we can actually draw out the tumor motion throughout the whole breathing phase and then include that in the treatment area. Okay, so this is just a video of showing how the lung tumor moves in the different phase of the treatment. Okay, you can see the tumor on your right-hand corner. So at the different phase of the breathing, the tumor is moving. Okay, it's a short video, so watch. Okay, so now you can see the tumor. So if we capture, if during CT scan, we can only capture the tumor at the small area. So that means when the doctors draw out the tumor, they will draw a very small area. But actually the tumor is much bigger when you inhale out at a different position. So that's why 4D CT is very important in radiotherapy because it allows us to have a much accurate estimation of the actual treatment position. Okay, so this is how the 4D CT works. It actually tracks the 10 phases of the motion, of your breathing motion. All right. So if we have CT, we can actually draw the treatment position at the different phase of the breathing. So you know what is the size. And after that, we combine this and come up with average size that we use for radiotherapy. So we will not miss out the tumor. So this is how powerful the 4D CT imaging is for radiotherapy. Okay, so recently there have been a lot of interest on the sparing of the normal tissues in radiotherapy treatment because we can see the things so well, all the different normal tissues so well. We can actually try to spare it because we don't want to include it in the treatment field. So as you all know, radiotherapy can cause a lot of damages. So some of you may have friends or relatives after radiotherapy, they have a lot of side effects. So the image on your right shows the traditional treatment where we use the two fields, all right, to treat the brain. So when we treat the brain, the whole brain receives total dose, the full dose. But as you know, after patient receiving whole brain treatment, usually there are neurocognitive neurocognitive, that means their functioning after whole brain radiotherapy is affected, because especially they got memory loss, all right? And then there is short-term memory loss. So they have actually accounted to this area known as the hippocampus. So if we can spare the hippocampus during the whole brain treatment, can we help to improve the quality of life of the patient? So recently there are a lot of articles, all right, publishing, since we can see all this area that do not have the tumor. And if we can spare effectively, we can improve the quality of life of patient. Okay, so this is another article on the neurovascular bundle sparing radiotherapy for prostate cancer. Sexual health is always an issue for patients undergoing radiotherapy. Traditionally, if patients just go for surgery, all right, the bundle, neurovascular bundle, is always spared and will not resected during the prostatectomy surgery. But however, in radiotherapy treatment, if patients do go for radiotherapy treatment, this whole area, the neurovascular bundle, will be treated to the full dose because it's so close to the prostate. So if we are not able to deliver a very accurate treatment to this area, of course the doctors would rather treat it than to spare it, because if you spare it and you miss the tumor will come back. So that is the worst side effect. So in radiotherapy, the worst side effect is to have recurrent. So maybe your quality of life may not be so good, but as a patient, you would prefer not to have the cancer back than to spare the neurovascular bundles and then the cancer is back. But now, because we are able to accurately locate this neurovascular bundle using our CT, all right, so there are a lot of studies trying to see if we can spare this area without compromising on the radiation treatment, then maybe we can help to improve the quality of life of the patient. Okay, lastly, this is the article that was published last year on the non-invasive cardiac radiation for ablation of ventricular tachycardia. So what does it mean? So this article was published last year at the New England Journal, where radiotherapy was being used to treat ventricular tachycardia. Right? As we all know, radiotherapy has traditionally been used to treat cancer only, mainly for cancer. Right? So, and then for the ablation of ventricular tachycardia, it is a surgical procedure that takes up to 6 hours or more. All right? And these patients are usually not very fit and well paid. So the doctors from the University of Washington have successfully treated patients with ventricular tachycardia using radiotherapy. However, this is only a very early stage of development, all right, and on very selective patients. So far, the initial results has been very, very positive, because these are the patients, they may not even be fit for the ablation procedures using catheter. So radiotherapy actually offers them some hope, because from the advanced imaging, SPECT, MR, CT, all right, we are able to locate the scar area. So that is the area that is giving the problem. All right, so if we can identify the area that's giving the problem, and we can direct the radiation therapy accurately at this area with very low dose to the surrounding organ, such as using the stereotactic body radiotherapy. So that was the technique they used for this paper. You can actually help to treat ventricular tachycardia. So the initial result has been very positive. So there are a lot of discussion about these papers. So maybe, who knows, next time we can use radiotherapy for more treatment rather than just cancer treatment. All right? Okay, these are my references, and thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Chekwi. You have a good presentation. I'm sorry for this session because of limited of the time. The committee asked me to keep your question in the session, to write your question and send to the committee because the time schedule will be continue with the other speaker. I'm sorry for this condition. Okay, thank you, Chekwi. Give a big applause to Ms. Chekwi.
And Mr. Tanti, would you like to keep on the stage? And Mr. Sugianto, would you like to give a certificate for Ms. Tanti?
Thank you very much, Irma. Thank you for the introduction. And thank you all for the very warm welcome that you've given to me since I've arrived here. Swastiastu. So today I want to speak to you about radiation dose in interventional radiology with a particular emphasis on neuroimaging. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about, first, what are the doses for interventional radiology? First for the staff, and then for the patient. And then I want to answer a question that has been on the mind of radiographers and radiologists for many years. The question is, does the dose that we receive in diagnostic imaging matter? Is it important? So first, what is the dose to the staff? Myself and a student radiographer in the University of Sydney carried out an experiment to look at the radiation dose received by the eyes of the operator during CT fluoroscopy. So CT fluoroscopy is an interventional procedure where we use CT to place a needle or a biopsy during radiology. We were interested in the dose to the operator, which is usually the radiographer, during that procedure. In the University of Sydney, we are very lucky to have a CT scanner. It is a Toshiba Aquilon, it's 16 slice. And so we set up a phantom that was in position to look at where the operator might be during CT fluoroscopy. So we positioned the phantom here, and you can see the patient inside the scanner. We looked at different heights of operators, how tall they were, and we looked at the angle at which they stood, how they were standing. We investigated the eye dose, both with and without lead shields on the face. So just to emphasize to you, this research was all carried out by radiographers, and it was published in the Journal of Radiological Protection, JRP. So what we found was that, first of all, the angle at which you stand does matter. This is the radiation dose you receive at 30 degrees, which is just over 10 micrograys, so 1 milligray to the eye. At 60 degrees and at 120 degrees, it is much lower. So when the operator is facing towards the CT scanner, the dose to the eyes is approximately 5 times higher than if they face away. So if this is the scanner and the operator turns their body this way, their dose is 5 times less, just by turning your body 90 degrees. So a simple change in the way in which you're standing can reduce your dose significantly. The second piece of our research might be some bad news for some of you, that being small in height increases your radiation dose during CT fluoroscopy. But it is not too much, it's okay. So this is my height. This is my height over here, so around 200 centimeters. And at 200 centimeters you receive 6 microgray to your eye. But if you're 160 centimeters, you receive 8 micrograys to the eye. And the dose is significant. So, being a little bit taller, some of the radiologists or radiographers will receive less dose to their eye. So, being small is a little bit worse for dose. And finally, we looked at exposure factors. And this will not be a surprise to many of you, that the higher the KVP, the worse the dose. So this is 125 kVp with 10 MAS, and this is 135 kVp with 30 MAS. So you can see that the dose increases significantly with kVp and MAS. So in summary, operators during interventional procedures with CT will receive doses that are equivalent to 1 milligray to the eye. So it is not very high, but it is still 1 milligray for one procedure. Okay, so you do one procedure, you get 1 milligray. You do 10 procedures, you get 10 milligray. The dose effect is cumulative, so it adds up together. So that's the first part of the talk finished. During interventional CT, the operator does receive a dose, and it is not insignificant. It is an important amount of dose. So let's look next at the dose to the patient. Now, we consider doses for staff and patients as separate things because the staff have to do the job as part of their work, and we can put in place procedures to protect them. The staff might have to do many procedures, where the patient should only have one, or maybe a few, but it's not their job to have procedures. So the doses are different. But in interventional radiology, I would advise you to look at this paper by Hellemere in the journal Radiology in 2017. Because what they did was they looked at the complexity of interventional radiology procedures. And what they found was that with difficult cases, the dose was significantly higher. So what you're seeing here is that for difficult cases, patients are receiving 0.7 grays. So this is not milligray, this is not microgray, this is 0.7 grays for difficult interventional procedures. So that is 700 milligray, if you like. For simple procedures, they receive 70. For standard procedures, they receive 30. But for complex procedures, they're receiving, 0.7 grays, 0.26 grays, or 0.07 grays. So, interventional radiology continues to be one of the areas where patients receive the highest doses. When interventional began in the 70s, it was immediately clear that doses were higher. They remain higher to this day. But when you have a complex case, patients are receiving close to a gray. This is 0.78 plus or minus 0.1 So at the highest level, some patients are receiving 0.88 grays for complex interventional procedures. So that is a really important point. So that was a paper by Helen Mayer, 2017 in radiology. Another paper by Marshall in 2000 in physics and biology showed us that for complex procedures, some patients were receiving as much as 100 gray per centimeter. So doses have come down since 2000. So over the last 18 years, the dose has come down by maybe 100 times, but it's still very high. And it's not just a couple of papers, it's not just one or two papers, it is multiple papers. So in 2016, Ruiz Cruces from Spain, in the European Radiology Journal, reported these doses in gray centimeters squared. So for a transjugular hepatic biopsy, 45. For an iliac stent, 170 gray per centimeter squared. So these are high doses. And the evidence agrees across multiple countries. So the question is, does that matter? Many of you will hear people saying, it doesn't matter. It's just a diagnostic procedure. They get it once, it's not important dose. Yeah? Have you heard that said? Not important. The dose doesn't matter. The benefit is more important. Yeah? I would agree with that most of the time. But there is still an important question to be answered. Does low dose matter? Now, most of the proposed models look like this. These dots are the data from the Japanese atomic bomb survivors. We know from epidemiological studies that the survivors in Japan had an increase in cancer with an increase in dose. So at 100 millisieverts, we know that cancer goes up. But this area down here, we don't know about. We just don't, we have to find out more about the low doses. So some of the theories are that it is a straight line. That's called the linear no threshold theory. Some theories say that there is a threshold response, that you have to go above a certain dose before there's an effect. So we have nothing happening for a while at low dose. Some theories say that there's a hormesis effect, that in fact a low dose of radiation is good for you, that you kill some cells that should have been dead, and your body is better for that. And some theories say that there's a hypersensitivity model, that at low doses, and those are the 5 theories that are out there. But I have some news for you today. They are all wrong. All of the theories. Not for a very important reason, but a reason that we need to consider. None of them show that there would be a stationary phase, that at a certain point the damage has reached its maximum and it becomes stationary. This is what cellular biology tells us. Nothing is linear in biology. This is the typical phase. There is a lag phase, there is an acceleration phase, there is a stationary phase, and then there is a death phase. So all of these graphs should show death. So if we look at this model, they at least should be corrected like this. That after a certain amount of radiation, it's not cancer that happens, it's death. But the good news is that our bodies are really good at correcting damage. And I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about this. So when our body has damage to its DNA, this happens thousands of times a day, hundreds of thousands of times a day. Our body gets reports of damage, but our body knows how to make DNA, and we know how to fix it. So once damage occurs, a process happens in the body, and the damage happens to you all of the time. Enzymes are then sent out to fix that damage. So the enzymes come to the damaged DNA, whether it's from smoking, whether it is from radiation, whether it is from sunlight. You could have damage caused by hydrogen peroxide in your body, and there are special ways in which our body can repair that. So here's an X-ray. An X-ray can break apart the DNA. It can break apart a single, or it can bring apart double. A double strand break can cause a cell to die. A single strand break can be repaired. So we have, for example, when there's one part of the DNA damaged, your body can take another piece of DNA and join it together so that you get what's called homologous end joining. So the two strands of DNA are fixed. Sometimes the piece of DNA is not available to fix at that location. So instead, we do non-homologous end joining, but there can be mistakes. So sometimes we can repair perfectly, sometimes we can repair imperfectly. But the most important thing to know is that this happens hundreds of thousands of times a day. Your body is repairing your DNA right now as you sit there. And it is complex. But I want to point out, this is the pathway of gene correction. I want to point out BRCA1 and 2. Now, we can watch DNA repairing itself. This is my student. His name is Marcus Kerr. He wrote his name in a cell with laser beams. And as we watch, we can see the red, which is the DNA repair happening in the cell. So it is something that we can watch happening in real time. And let's look at some of the papers about this low-dose radiation. If we can repair, is it important? So, first of all, in 2016, one of the largest studies looking at Japanese atomic bomb survivors was done by Drobkin et al. In Environmental Health. You should look at this paper. What they found was that the linear model is an inadequate description of the relative risk. And for all solid cancers, almost all of the survivors show an excess relative risk, but particularly for women. They demonstrated for the first time that at 10 milligray, so very low dose, 10 milligray, there is a 9.6 to 45.7 times higher prediction than the linear risk would suggest. So this paper, for the first time, is evidence that the hypersensitivity model might be correct. That at low dose is not good for you. That at low dose, we are far more sensitive to radiation, according to this paper. Almost 45 times more sensitive at low dose than we are at high dose. Now, this was a significant breakthrough in what we know. Let's look at another paper by Nguyen et al. In 2015. They looked at cardiac CT angiography. And they specifically looked at the biomarkers in a cell to see if they had been damaged by a cardiac CT. They took 72 patients who had just blood collected, and they had 72 patients who had a cardiac CT. And they examined their blood using flow cytometry. So flow cytometry is when we can look at each of the cells very fast and look at what happens to multiples of them very quickly. So looking at the DNA damage across multiple cells very quickly. What they found was that even after a CT angiography, which is a low dose, around about 7.5 millisieverts, that 3 of the DNA damage biomarkers were activated. Gamma H2AX, P53, and ATM are all parts of your cells that help with repair. And even after a low dose, these are active. That means your body has been damaged. They didn't examine below 7.5, so we still need to go lower and examine this effect below 7.5. But the most important thing about this study is that in all situations, the patients who had the radiation had higher markers than the patients who did not. Significantly higher. And nothing explains this except the dose. The age doesn't explain it. The sex doesn't explain it. The weight or the race doesn't explain it. Only the dose explains the difference. But here is where you should pay attention. This is the distribution of different doses. But look at these people. This person has had 40% of their cells damaged, whereas this person has had almost 0. Even in a small group of 72 patients, we have this massive range of almost no damage versus 40% of their cells being damaged. There are striking differences between people. And if we look at an individual patient, this patient, patient number 22, even after 16 days, they had still not repaired. So, what is the point? The point is that, does this demonstrate that medical imaging at low doses is causing cancer? No, it is not. But what it is demonstrating that even at low doses, there is damage. And at this damage level, some patients are not repairing. Everybody has B or CA genes. Everybody has them. But some people have damage to their genes. And in these patients, it is likely that the damage is not being repaired. Finally, and this is my last couple of slides, let's look at this paper by Matthews et al. In 2013. They looked at 11 million Australians who had one CT. And what they found was that there was a 34% higher risk for patients developing cancer after one CT. They found that if you had a brain CT or a chest CT, your risk of developing a melanoma or a soft tissue cancer was 4 times higher than someone who did not have the cancer. If you had an abdomen or pelvis, your chances of developing leukemia were 3 times higher than someone who did not have it. If you had an abdomen or pelvis, your chances of developing a brain tumor were twice as high. If you had any CT, the chances of developing a brain tumor were twice as high. So what does all of this tell us? Does the radiation dose that we receive during diagnostic imaging matter? The answer is yes. Evidence is increasingly showing us that even at the low doses that we give during diagnostic CT, people are developing effects after them. At 10 millisieverts in the A-bomb survivors and the atomic bomb survivors, we are seeing 45 times higher cancers. Even after one CT scan, we are seeing 4 times the risk. But the most important thing here is that some patients will be more affected by this dose than others. So what do I think the future is? I think in the future, maybe 30 or 40 years from now, we will know which patients are more sensitive to radiation than others. And we won't send patients for CT or ionizing radiation examinations. We'll send them for ultrasound or MRI guided interventions instead. Right now, we treat everybody as if they are the average. But the reality is that we need to treat everybody as if they are an individual. And some individuals are more sensitive to radiation than others. Thank you very much.
Well, that was such a great presentation from Professor Mark. Once again, please big applause for him. Well, I think we still have a little bit of time, so I'll open the Q&A session. For the first sessions, I'll open for 3 questions maybe.
That's a Balinese greeting. Welcome to you. Excellencies, distinguished honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Waalaikumsalam. Waalaikumsalam. Good evening and welcome to Pandawa Ballroom on the occasion Gala Dinner. Southeast Asia Radiographers and Radiological Technologies Conference 2018. During SEARC 2018, we have met and shared knowledge from the speakers and participants. Of course, has added insight and information especially in medical imaging and radiation therapy. We are very happy and proud of SEARC 2018, which has been going well and successfully. Ladies and gentlemen, as a sign that Indonesian radiographers are happy for Bali anniversary, we invite respectfully to the President of Perhimpunan Radiographer Indonesia, Mr. Sugianto, and the First Lady, Mrs. Fatimah Sugianto, to be able cutting the tumpeng.
Okay, this is our anniversary. This is 21 of October. So So that's why we choose the event is close to the 21 of October. And right now we are 62 years old for Bali. So this is a kind of potong tumpeng. We call it potong tumpeng. Try to celebrate that things to God that Pari is still alive right now. And I will give this tumpeng to Pak Dayono, Pak Kasimin, and Pak Agus Widana. This is our senior radiographer who works more than 30 years in radiology imaging. So enjoy the dinner and also enjoy the show. Maybe in the last we will show kecak dance. After this color dinner. So thank you very much. Thanks for all. Thanks for your support. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Ya, kami mengundang dengan hormat kepada Bapak Agus Widana, Bapak Dahyono, dan Bapak Kasimin untuk bisa naik ke atas panggung untuk dapat diberikan tumpeng sebagai tanda kehormatan bagi senior Radiographers Indonesia. Yang pertama, tumpeng diberikan kepada Bapak Agus Widana. Potongan kedua diberikan kepada Bapak Kasimin. Dan potongan yang ketiga diberikan kepada Bapak Dahyono. Mari kita berikan tepuk tangan kepada senior kita. Terima kasih atas pengabdian dan lebih dari 40 tahun, luar biasa. 40 tahun. More than 40 years to be a radiographer. Okay, the next agenda is gift exchange. Yes, Mr. Sugianto, would you like to come on the stage again? And we'll invite our president, but the first we will invite the president of Macau Radiological Technology, Mr. Kok Leong K. Fernando, to give exchange. Yeah. Yes. Yes, you may take the picture for gift exchange session. Mr. Taifan Lau. Big applause. Thank you. And the next
next, the President of Taiwan Society of Radiological Technologies, Mr. Chim Pucha. Thank you very much, Mr. Chim Pucha. And the next, the President of Malaysian Society of Radiographers, Mr. Muhammad Faisal Abdullah. Thank you. Yes. The next, the President of Hong Kong Radiographers Association, Mr. Edward Wong. The next, the President of Singapore Society of Radiographers, Mr. Chun Meng Chiang. Thank you. And the next, the President Hong Kong College of Radiographers and Radiation Therapists, Mr. Edward Chan. Thank you very much. And the next, the President of Taiwan Association of Medical Radiation Technologists, Mr. Cha Chi-Shu.
Thank you very much. And the next, the President of Thai Society of Radiological Technologies, Mr. Salau Ubochai.
Next, the President of Philippines Association of Radiologic Technologies, Mr. Rolando Banares. Yes, the next, the President of Myanmar Society of Medical Radiation Technologies, Mr. Kin Mang Tin.
Thank you very much. The next, the President of Indian Society of Radiographers and Radiological Technologies, Mr. R. Salam Kumar.
Berarti mati ada satu. The next questions for the speaker, we invite Mr. Napapong Pongnapang. And the next for Ms. Tan Chek Wei. And for the next, please, Professor Mark McCarthy. would you like to come to on stage? The next, President of Japan, Mr. Kojiro. Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Successfully because of the participation of all vendors. For that, we would like to invite the vendors are PT Fuji Film Indonesia, PT Siemens, and PT GE Healthcare to take in certificate appreciation from the President of Indonesian Society of Radiographers. Please to Mr. Sugianto be able to submit the certificate appreciation. Kepada para vendor yang kami sebutkan, kami mohon perwakilannya untuk dapat maju ke atas panggung. Dari PT Fuji Film Indonesia, dari PT Siemens, dan PT GE. PT Siemens, ketiganya adalah vendor-vendor yang telah berpartisipasi pada acara kita hari ini. Dan tadi kita juga sudah mengikuti paralel simposium. Betul nggak ada ya? Sudah mengikuti paralel simposium dari 3 modalitas.
3 modalitas.
Dari City
Siemens ya.
City dari Siemens yang dibawakan oleh dari tim Siemens, MRI dari tim GE, dan
terakhir
di RMPEX SEARC dari PT Fuji Film Indonesia. Kita beri tepuk tangan atas partisipasi dan kontribusinya dari para vendor yang malam ini diwakilkan dari ketiga vendor yang sudah hadir. menari tadi ya. Gak nyangka ya, tamu-tamu kita dari luar negeri juga luas-luas loh narinya. Bisa nari Bali.
All of our guests can
Dance, Bali dance. Baik, kami telah menyiapkan door prize. Mungkin ini juga yang ditunggu-tunggu nih sama peserta.
Ya.
Ada door prize yang sudah disiapkan. Jadi kami akan mengundi. Siap-siap nomornya ya. Kita lihat.
Ya. Ada berapa door prize?
Ada 4. Ada 4 door prize.
4 door prize.
Oke. Kemudian nanti yang akan muncul adalah 3 nomor terakhir. Jadi coba dicek dari ID card-nya. Oke. 3 last number.
The last number.
Oke.
3 number. 3 ya.
3 nomor terakhir.
3 last number.
Oke, 3 nomor terakhir yang ada di ID card. Sudah siap Mas Hariri? Oke.
Oke, siap ya. Kita acak angkanya.
Kita acak angkanya.
Oke, Mas Hariri. Siap.
1, 2, 3. Nah,
153. The last number.
153. Coba dicek.
Cek.
Ada? Oke, 3 nomor terakhir.
2018 02 153. 2018
Ada?
02 153.
Coba saya cek dulu.
Iya.
153 betul.
2018 02 153.
Oke, saya lihat stikernya ada semua. Oke, baik. Mana hadiahnya?
Ya. Zakaria. Dari mana?
Dari Palembang.
Nggak sia-sia
Luar
ya,
biasa
Palembang ke
jauh.
Bali dapat
Palembang
door prize ya.
Iya. Mimpi apa tadi malam? Jadi dapat door prize ya. Kulkas ini isinya. Silahkan.
Oke, baik, terima kasih.
Boleh kembali ke tempat duduk.
Baik,
Ya.
masih ada 3.
Ada 3 lagi ya, 3 lagi. Kita acak lagi nomornya, Mas Hariri boleh kita acak nomornya, kita acak angka. 1, 2, 3. 2018 02 270. Ada?
270 ada?
270. Tidak ada ya?
Oke, kayaknya nggak ada ya.
Lanjut,
Beruntung.
kita
Ayo
acak
Mas Hariri,
lagi,
diacak
acak
lagi. 1, 2, 3. Oke.
121, 3 angka terakhir, 121.
Ada? Nggak ada.
Nggak ada
Oke.
lagi.
Ada? Oh ada. Mana?
Ada.
121.
2018 02 121.
Door prize itu ditunggu-tunggu sama peserta. Biar dapat oleh-oleh dari Bali apa ya door prize-nya. Nah, untuk panitia sudah menyiapkan 4 door prize. Tadi sudah 1.
Yuk Mas, semangat
Nah,
nih
sekarang
kita
yang kedua.
dapat door prize ya. Semangat. 2018 02 121 dari RSUD Dr. Doris Palu.
Kalteng.
Oh, Kalimantan Palangkaraya ya. Silahkan difoto dulu Mas. Boleh Mbak Sinta? Jauh-jauh ya ternyata yang dapat door prize dari Palangkaraya. Ya, terima kasih. Ya,
Oke, masih
ketiga.
ada 2 ya. Oke,
Dua
lagi. 1, 2, 3. Nah,
399 ada?
399.
399. Ada?
Gak ada?
Gak ada. Saya
Oke.
pikir ada yang berdiri tadi nomor yang
Kepengen
ini.
itu kalau
Iya,
itu kepengen.
Sepertinya kepengen ya dapat door prize ya.
Lanjut
ya.
Mas Hariri.
Oke.
1,
Mudah-mudahan
2,
ya.
3. Oke,
172.
172. Ada 172. Oh, seneng nih. Ini
Aduh,
beneran berarti.
senangnya dapat door prize. Ya. 2018 02 172. Tadi sudah 2 orang radiografer laki-laki ya. Sekarang saatnya wanita unjuk diri ya. Dapat door prize ya. Sering dapat door prize, Mbak?
Oh, berarti memang rezekinya ya. Bagus.
Berarti orang Kalimantan udah dapat 2 nih, Mbak dari Kalsel.
Banjarmasin.
Dari Banjarmasin.
Ternyata Kalimantan sudah ada 2, Kalimantan Tenggara dan Kalsel ya.
Kalsel.
Banjarmasin dan Palangkaraya.
Baik, tinggal satu lagi.
Satu lagi ya.
Boleh diacak lagi Mas Ariri? 1, 2, 3. Oke, 2 angka cantik. 68. Lihat 2 nomor di belakang angka
2018-02-068.
ID-nya coba lihat 2 angka terakhir.
Ya, ada. Ini sebenarnya nomor cantik ya, mendekati umur pari loh.
Tadi pari 62.
Iya. Nggak ada ya? Wah. Ya
Oke,
sudah.
lanjut lagi
Kita
Mas
acak
Ariri.
lagi.
Mungkin yang terakhir. Mulai lagi. Oke. 1, 2, 3. Nah, ini lebih kecil lagi nomornya,
Lebih kecil
14.
lagi. Nomor 14 ada.
Ini berarti pendaftar ke 14 kayaknya. Iya, oke, ada orangnya?
Ada.
Boleh maju?
Ada, betul.
Nggak ada? Oke, terakhir kali ya.
Lanjut.
Mas Ariri
lagi.
boleh sekali lagi? Sekali lagi.
Ada. Ada ya?
Oh, ada. 14 ada.
Ya, the last ini ya, door prize ya.
The last door prize.
Door prize.
Is that lucky number?
Ya. Jadi tadi udah radiografer laki-laki 2 dan sekarang perempuan 2. Wah, angka cantik ya.
Dari mana Mbak?
Dari Makassar.
Dari Makassar. Oke, tepuk tangan yuk buat teman kita yang hari ini sedang beruntung dapat 4 door prize yang sudah disediakan oleh panitia.
Selanjutnya apa ini Mbok Sinta?
Baik, selanjutnya adalah teman-teman sekalian, kita tahu bahwa tanggal 28 September yang lalu kita mendapatkan, khususnya Indonesia dan teman-teman yang berada di Palu dan Donggala, mendapatkan ujian musibah terjadinya gempa bumi dan tsunami. The 7.4 magnitude earthquake and tsunami that destroyed Palu and Donggala in Central Sulawesi on Friday, September 28. Amount is around 1,400 people is dead, and the earthquake destroyed infrastructure and home. So we will charity for Palu and Donggala tonight, and then after that we will, the committee please to prepare for take a charity. Panitia sudah siap untuk melakukan charity? Jadi nanti kita spontan untuk mengadakan penggalangan dana bagi teman-teman kita yang ada di Palu dan Donggala. Kebetulan ada teman kita yang hari ini datang dari Palu, Ibu Debi ada? Ibu Debi, boleh maju Bu Debi? Bagaimana kita berikan support untuk teman kita, our friend from Palu? Boleh maju ke depan Ibu Debi? Ternyata Tuhan masih sayang dengan Bu Dewi dan keluarga, jadi sehingga beliau
ya
hari ini
kita undang
masih bersama-sama kita. Walaupun setelah kejadian kita ya semua teman-teman radiografer Indonesia takut, worried about our friend in Palu. Bu Dewi apa kabar?
Ya.
Bagaimana Bu Dewi? Keadaannya baik?
Luar biasa.
Keluarga sehat, selamat semua? Oke, mungkin sebelah sini Bu Debi. Boleh nggak Bu Debi menceritakan sedikit ke kami sambil kami tunggu dari tim panitia untuk segera mengumpulkan donasi. Bagaimana kejadiannya waktu itu pas gempa bumi di sore menjelang malam ya Bu ya, jam 6 sore betul. Maaf ya Bu kalau kami harus reminder lagi kejadian itu. Boleh bahasa Indonesia nggak apa-apa?
Ya, terima kasih ya. Sebenarnya saya nggak mau mengenang yang kemarin karena kami atas doa dan dukungan ya dari berbagai pihak dan khususnya dari teman-teman radiografer yang ada di Indonesia dan mungkin juga dari luar negeri. Jadi kami jadi semangat ya karena dukungan doa dan tim relawan juga yang tentunya di tim relawan itu ada teman-teman radiografer dan itu menjadi sesuatu kekuatan bagi kami terutama radiografer untuk lebih maju. Artinya trauma kami itu sedikit demi sedikit sudah sudah mulai pulih. Walaupun sekarang ini kita masih ada tetap menyiapkan tenda-tenda untuk para pasien dan kami menerima pasien di luar gedung. Nanti kalau ada pasien mau difoto baru kita masuk ke gedung.
Jadi gedungnya sendiri belum aman ya? Belum
ya,
dipastikan aman.
Sampai sekarang waktu saya meninggalkan kota Palu itu tanggal 17 itu masih ada gempa tapi sudah nggak terlalu nggak terlalu besar lagi, mungkin cuman 3 skala Richter ya gitu.
Tapi yang kejadiannya sendiri Bu Devi dan keluarga selamat.
Ya, radiografer juga di Sulawesi Tengah semuanya selamat ya, keluarga dan anak-anak dan tentu saja peralatan radiologi itu tidak banyak kerusakan dan kami masih bisa menggunakan alat radiologi untuk membantu penegakan diagnosa di dalam rangka penanggulangan korban yang luka atau ada fraktur dan lain-lain. Dan itu sangat membantu.
Baik, yang pasti kami di sini senang, bahagia, juga tenang Bu Devi karena memastikan Bu Devi datang dengan selamat dan hadir serta ikut bergabung kepada kita. Baik, kita beri tepuk tangan untuk teman-teman kita yang ada di Palu.
Terima kasih Pak Gi.
Mungkin Pak Gi, silakan yang ingin menyampaikan sesuatu.
Terima kasih banyak. Ya. Terima kasih banyak ya kepada ya. Aku nggak bisa ngomong lagi. Ya, terima kasih banyak. Ya, udah. Ya, masih ya.
Semangat ya Kak Devi, puji Tuhan masih sehat sampai sekarang. Walaupun duka menghantam, tapi Kak Devi tetap semangat.
She's from Palu, okay? She's from Palu. The radiographer from Palu. So she said thank you for support from the everybody to Palu, especially for volunteer. Visiting to Palu to help anybody in Palu, and she's very happy can join with us tonight. Dan yang pasti teman-teman juga kita merasa turut tenang ya kalau teman-teman kita yang di Palu juga ternyata selamat.
Ya, kami persilahkan kepada tim penggalangan dana untuk bisa bersama-sama untuk membantu keluarga kita di Palu, baik itu keluarga radiografer maupun yang lainnya. Kami persilahkan Mas Yusuf dan teman-teman. Ya, silakan Mas Yusuf. teman-teman radiographer, thank you for radiographer for the charity, for the charity
to our radiographer and the people in Palu. We will calculate it about how much we get tonight, and we can share after this event.
And then the next step, yeah. And for the next Southeast Asia Radiographers and Radiological Technologies Conference, the next event will be held in Thailand, and for that, we look on the handover shares from President of Indonesian Society of Radiographers to the President Thai Society of Radiological Technologies. We invite Mr. Sugianto and Mr. Salah Ubochai to hand over shares trophy.
Okay, we will hand over the memento, also the banner, yeah, that the next year the shows will be held in Thailand. So see you next year in Thailand and Bangkok. Okay.
Ya, teman-teman semua hadirin, kegiatan SEARC tahun depan akan dilaksanakan di Thailand, dan kita harap big applause for Thailand and Indonesia.
Jadi untuk selanjutnya teman-teman ditunggu kehadirannya di Thailand. Betul ya, Beda ya?
Thank you very much for the Seattle. And also, please welcome to Thailand next year on April.
Pak Sugianto, kami mohon untuk tetap di tempat karena akan kami lanjutkan penyerahan bendera estafet dari Kapengda Bali untuk diserahkan kepada Bapak Ketua Umum dan dilanjutkan untuk Ketua Pemda Sumatera Utara. Kami mohon dengan hormat Bapak Ketua Umum, Bapak Ketua Pemda Bali, Bapak Ketua Pemda Sumatera Utara untuk bisa naik ke atas podium.
Ya, kami undang sekali lagi Pemda Sumut Sumatera Utara beserta jajarannya untuk bisa.
Setelah tadi diumumkan next agenda selanjutnya di Thailand, maka kami juga mengumumkan bahwa kegiatan pari selanjutnya tahun depan akan diadakan di Sumatera Utara
beserta jajarannya. Monggo. Maaf ini bukan di Jawa ya, jadi monggo. Ya. Untuk kegiatan workshop dan rakernas selanjutnya ada di Pemda Sumatera Utara.
Baik, dari Ketua Pemda Pari diserahkan dulu kepada Ketua Umum untuk patakannya. Ini menandakan bahwa kegiatan pari tahun ini yang dilaksanakan oleh Pemda Bali bisa kembali ke Ketua Umum
dan dilanjutkan dari Ketua Umum ke Pemda Sumatera Utara. Ya, untuk workshop dan rakernas di Medan.
Baik, mungkin kepada Bapak Ketua Pemda Sumatera Utara bisa sedikit memberikan sambutannya.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Kami dari Pari Pemda Sumatera Utara mengucapkan terima kasih yang sebesar-besarnya kepada Pari Pusat atas kepercayaan yang diamanahkan kepada Pari Pemda Sumatera Utara untuk acara rakernas dan workshop bulan April tahun 2019. Sekali lagi kami mengucapkan terima kasih atas kepercayaan yang diberikan. Demikian kami sampaikan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.